Okay, so good morning, class, and welcome to your marketing management class. Today, we'll talk about selling policies, practices, and international marketing. So let's define this selling policies. No? Selling policies, basically, these are rules and guidelines that direct how products and services are sold. No? It ensure fairness, professionalism, and consistency. It covers pricing, discounts, returns, warranties, and customer handling. No? So basically, when we talk about selling policies, these are the governing structure on how you sell the product or services. No? So based on um, the industry where you are in. No? So it protects both the business and the customers, as well as it supports ethical and standardized sales operations. No? So one good example of a CPA firm, no, certified public accountant. So based on our code of conduct, no, so basically our policy, we cannot advertise ourselves as accountants, no, so we cannot flaunt, no, our license, no, so it has to we have to follow this code of conduct, no, because it again uh, it follow very strict ethical standards. Excuse me. Okay, so now we talk about these selling policies. No? So like I said earlier, it depends on the industry where you are in. So it also depends on the type of services, also depends on the type of product that you're selling. No? So another good example of this is whether uh, you're offering insurance policies. Now again, it's a product. Um, you cannot offer it without securing your permit or license from the insurance commission. So again, it follows a strict ethical standard. It also follows a very stringent process, no, in order for you to secure a valid license or a valid basically a license, no, from the insurance commission. Okay, so selling policies, it would promote consistent customer treatment across the organization, reducing legal and ethical risks through compliant practices. So I remember, no, um, securing a spot, no, in a beach club in San Juan, Batangas. So at that time I was young, I'm not. I was just really after the profit that it promises to offer when it becomes operational. No? So fast forward to this year, there are actually a lot of complaints about this beach club. No, I'm not going to mention the name, but basically the stockholders aren't happy on how um, they manage the beach club, and it turned out that they are actually not licensed to sell shares. So because they offered shares of stock at that time, so members in the form of membership. No? Now the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, ruled that they have practices illegal activities. So you have to make sure that you're dealing with, competent individuals who have uh, certain licenses, no, to offer you product. No? So I learned my lesson there. No? So that's the reason why I'm also sharing this to the class. Okay. So it also improves sales efficiency through clear rules, no? Strengthen brand image through reliable services, and it guides negotiations and after sales interactions. No? So after sales interactions, these are very crucial, no? Especially when you're offering products. No? So for example, MacBook. The reason why MacBook are the laptop, no? The reason why um, they're really pricey is because number one, the operating system, and also the after sales services. So they're very keen on making sure that you're up for success, no, using their products. So let's now talk about the different types of selling practices. So we have number one, personal selling. It's a direct face-to-face interaction. No? So probably one good example of this are the people selling merchandise in SM department store. So even beauty products. So obviously, when people approach you to buy their products or perfumes at the store, it's personal selling. No? So they do direct face-to-face interaction. Now we have this consultative selling. So it's an advisory approach to customer needs. Now, I think a good example of these are those agents. No? So they call themselves financial advisors. No? So but basically these people are you know licensed individuals to offer you um, your insurance needs. No? So it could be a life insurance, a health insurance, or um, accidental insurance. So it's consultative in such a way because they would also inquire about your what your needs are. They would also look at your current financial standing, basically to offer you advice on what product is suitable for you. The next we have transactional selling. No? It's a quick one-time sales focus. No? So it could be, you know, if the real estate agents. No? So I think they fall under this transactional selling. It's quick and it's also one time because most of us, especially here in our country, we don't actually do, we don't really purchase multiple real estate. No? Obviously, if you're into investing in real property uh, business, so it would be a different story, no? But generally, it's transactional selling. No? So let's look at the other example of uh, transactional selling in the Philippines. So examples are appliance store sales. No? So in SM Appliance or in Abenson. No? So obviously, if you're selling, for example, washing machine or refrigerator, no, you don't really need to have an ongoing relationship with the person purchasing it. No, the goal is to just close the sale immediately. No? Another example is telco prepaid SIM or load selling. So when you load up a a prepaid number, no, it's one-time purchase, and there has to be no follow-up needed. Good example also is fast food counter orders. So Jollibee and McDo, no, it's quick, it's simple purchase, and there's no need for a relationship building. No, so this is also true with Lazada or Shopee product purchases, no? And retail clothing stores like Pen Shop, and Uniqlo. Now, there's also a certain type called relationship selling. So in relationship selling, long-term customer engagement is at stake, no? So it is also called relational selling because it focuses on building long-term relationships with customers rather than just completing a one-time sale. So key features of relationship selling are a long-term partnership. It is based on trust and credibility, deep understanding of customer needs, ongoing support after the sale, and repeat business and referrals. No? So a good example of these are, again, real estate agents. No? So agents from the Ayala Land, DMCI, Mega World, no? Because they build rapport with buyers, they give multiple consultations, they also assist with loan application and stay in touch after the turnover. Another example is the corporate account managers, no? So the likes of PLDT Enterprise, Globe Business, no? They do regular check-ins, they customize packages, they offer after-sale support and multi-year contracts, no? So for example, you're a business and you're dealing with PLDT. So basically, if you're catering with if you have contracted PLDT to be your internet provider for your business, no? So it entails a lot of regular check-ins, and they will also provide you a customized package. Another example is business to business suppliers, no? So example is a packaging supplier serving a factory, no? So they visit clients regularly, they provide credit terms, no? So they negotiate for it, and they also help solve production issues. So it's a little, okay. Okay. So another example of relationship selling is the bank relationship managers. No? So we have, for example, BDO, BPI, or Metrobank, no? Especially for high net worth accounts or even for SMEs. No? So they offer personalized advice, helps with loans, investments, and services, and then maintains frequent contact. Okay. Then next we have this solution selling. Solution selling offers complete packages or systems, no? So it is a sales approach where the seller focuses on understanding the customer's problem and then offering a customized solution, not just a product. So you don't sell a product, you solve a problem. So key features of a solution selling approach or type of selling practice, it starts with diagnosing the customer's pain points. No? So you talk to your customer, what's your problem? And then you ask deep questions because you're trying to make an analysis. No? And then from there, you recommend a tailored combination of products and services. It shows value instead of just price. This is often used for complex or high value sales, no, in business to business, or we call it B2B. So steps in solution selling, again, you identify the customer's problem, understand the impact of the problem, and you match the right solution. It could be tools, services, packages. And then from there, you show ROI. No? So when we say ROI, the return on investment or benefits, you customize the offer and support implementation. No? So again, uh, a good example of this would be the PLDT or Globe Business Enterprise Solutions. No, so instead of selling just internet, the account manager would propose internet, cybersecurity, cloud services, hotline support. No, so they solve the client's connectivity issue and as well as security and data privacy. No, then we have also this enterprise resource planning or software providers. No? So the likes of SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, or Sprout. No? So this company, for company struggling with manual processes, they offer ERP system as well as training, integration, and automation. So continuous improvements and customized dashboards. Again, for this type of vendors, the goal is to solve operational inefficiencies. So in solution selling, you're not just offering a product, you're offering a complete package or systems that will enable you to work or perform at your best, to simply put it that way. So more selling practices, you're very much aware of this. No? So we have this online or e-commerce selling. Excuse me. So it's based on digital platforms and automated systems. No? So like before in TikTok, we just browse TikTok, but right now there's also TikTok Live. There's also Shopee Live, Lazada, no? So they're now offering different products there. Ethical selling, it's transparent, honest, and customer first approach. Selling policies and practices. No? So again, these are set of guidelines that direct sales strategies and activities. No? So it includes pricing policies, discount structures, and return policies. No? So for pharmaceutical companies, for example, Glass, no? whenever uh, we issue discounts and um, discount structures. No? So for example, if we're dealing with channel management, hospitals, no? The likes of Mercury Drug, for example, Mercury Drug, they do not offer near expiring. Sagit lang class ha, kulang ako ng water no, please. Okay, so again, no, so selling policies and practices also define salesperson responsibilities and ethical standards. No? So like I said, going back to my example earlier, if you're working to if you're working with huge pharmaceutical companies, our salespeople, we are bound to a high level of ethical standards. We don't do bribes, no, especially uh, in dealing with different government institutions. No, it's a big no-no. In fact, it's a ground for termination. So uh, we have to follow certain standards. No, so like for example, no, if it will fast track a a government approval or whatnot, we wouldn't be in that course, no? So it has to be black and white. Meaning we have to make sure that we follow protocols within the government. We don't do fixers. Okay, so it also ensures consistency in customer handling and service. No? So again, in the likes of shared services and business process outsourcing, we're trying to streamline our process. We're trying to find uh, the right approach. No? It's not one size fits all, but then we follow a standard operating procedure. We follow a desktop procedure. No? So a desktop workflow, for your information, it's basically telling you what are the steps needed uh, to perform an activity. No? So by coming up with a desktop procedure, when we're doing that desktop procedure, the goal in mind is that anyone, even not really experts in this field, would be able to perform those activities just by looking at those desktop procedures. No? So that's how powerful these desktop procedures are, no? Because it provides you with step-by-step procedures that you will need to do to perform an activity. Okay. It also helps maintain brand reputation and customer trust. No? So especially uh, right now in the advent of, um, interconnectivity, no? So internet is everywhere, no? Artificial intelligence, no? Even the algorithm in our social media networks, it really is important to have this brand reputation, and because also customer trust is really crucial in building your organization, in making sure that you have, you know, uh, a very strong uh, brand reputation and very strong brand. Now let's talk about stock control and inventory, no? So obviously, selling your goods is really crucial. It's important to drive sales revenue, to drive profit for your business. However, stock control in inventory is also as important as making sure that you have the right product to sell to your target market. So, stock control in inventory processes for managing product quantities in storage. It ensures enough stock to meet demand without overstocking. No? So, let's put it this way, class. No? So, say for example, you have good products. Obviously, you want to make sure that every order is fulfilled and that you don't also overstock, because overstocking would mean paying for more warehouse space. So it entails costs. Um, but if you don't have enough stocks, it would also mean that, it's a lost sale. Say, for example, one customer um, would like to purchase 100 cans of Delimondo, no, for example. And what if you only have 25 cans in your warehouse? So it's a loss sales, no? That customer would, oops, I'll just turn you on mute, okay? So we can continue our discussion. Okay, so again, it's a lost sales because that person would go to another supplier with the complete order. Well, I mean, a supplier who can complete the order required. So there are different methods to make sure that we have store stock control. Uh, these are FIFO, or first in, first out, LIFO, or last in, first out, and then we have this EOQ, or the economic order quantity. No? So I'll discuss more of this later in our next slides. So it reduces carrying costs. No? So when we say carrying costs, it's basically you know transporting your product from the supplier to your warehouse, and it also aids into preventing stock outs. It supports accurate forecasting and efficient operations. So to class, the next slide, we'll talk about different inventory management methods. So to class, um, as marketing managers, so this will be your basically this will be your path, no? After graduating from college, no? So you become uh, a marketer, no? Of a brand or a service in the future. Why is it important for you to learn about this different inventory management? It's actually just for one thing, just making sure that whenever you're marketing a product, that you all actually have products to sell. No, you don't want to be really focusing on marketing a product, yet you don't have stocks available on hand. No? So this also have different accounting, but you don't really need to do that, no, because there's another profession doing that for you. But it helps to have a good understanding of how this works. Okay, and that's the reason why we're going to discuss this different methods of inventory management. Let's talk about FIFO first. FIFO, it's first in, first out. It means the oldest inventory or the first bought is the first to be sold. No? So let's step back, no, in order for you to understand this. For example, in May 1, you purchase 5,000 cans of Delimondo. Then come May 30, you purchase another um, 5,000 cans. So in FIFO, meaning to say you have to sell first whatever you purchased last May 1. You have to exhaust it first to make sure that all the purchases that you made last May 1 is sold first. So that's FIFO. That's first in, first out. So first bought is the first to be sold. So how it works, items acquired earlier are recorded as sold first. Newer stock remains in inventory. No? So it's also best for perishable goods, food, medicine, no? So items that become outdated or expire. The advantages the advantages of this approach is number one, it lower risk of spoilage or obsolescence. Number two, inventory value is closer to current market conditions. No? So, because of the fluctuating price, no? It's important that we use FIFO in order for us to make sure that our pricing strategy still follows whatever is in the market. No? So, for example, the Delimonda price in May 1 would be higher or lower compared to the recent purchases. No? So obviously, it will affect our sales if you're not going to sell it at a price where it's aligned when we bought it. No, okay. So it is also simple and widely accepted. Then we have ito muna pala. Let's cover LIFO, no? So LIFO is last in, first out. The reason why I don't cover LIFO anymore because it's no longer uh accepted in the accounting world, no? So we're not following LIFO anymore, no? So it's still good to know, but again, like I said, it's no longer being used in practice, no? So basically, LIFO is last in, first out. Whatever you have purchased, the last would be sold first, no? So last in, first out. Now, this is the exciting part, no? So we have this economic order quantity. Economic order quantity is a formula used to determine the ideal order quantity that minimizes total inventory cost. No? So ano ba what comprise total inventory cost? So we have ordering costs. So this include delivery and administration. So for example, um, you source out thread or textile. No? So in Indonesia because you want to sell batik or batik clothing. So you go to Indonesia, you fly there, you book your airplane ticket, and you negotiate with you did an ocular, you went to different companies selling these batik textures. So those will form part of the ordering cost. No? So you purchase, then there's delivery cost, no? So airfare cost again. Holding costs, this now include storage and insurance. Obviously, you want to protect your business. No? So you rent out a warehouse where you can store this textile, no? Where you also store your finished goods, no? So the actual batik clothing. Then you also pay for insurance. Again, for EOQ or economic order quantity, it's making sure that you order the right amount that will um, optimize or minimize your ordering costs and holding costs. So conceptually, the ideal quantity to order so the company minimizes costs and avoids both overstocking and stock out. So in in Economic order quantity. It's the right or not actually not the right, but this is the balance quantity where you wouldn't experience overstocking and stack outs. No, so it's the balance between the two. No, so for example, the economic order quantity would tell you that purchasing this much would mean you have to rent out another space because the current space that you have won't be able to accommodate to store these textiles. And at the same time, EOQ count would also minimizes the ordering cost. No? So for example, it will tell you how many orders you have to perform each year. No? So you want with EOQ in mind, it will tell you or it at least give you an indicator when to order. Okay. It is best for stable demand environment and for items with predictable consumption rates. So advantages of this, again, it reduces total inventory costs. So when we say total inventory costs, it includes ordering costs as well as holding costs. It prevents excess stock. So we don't want excess stock again because excess stock would mean higher holding costs. And the EOQ, it will improve your cash flow. Again, how? Because it will tell you when to purchase. It will also tell you how much to purchase. Okay. So I also have a recorded video for EOQ. Again, it's a topic in accounting. If you're into accounting or if you want to learn more about this economic order quantity, I'll post the link to our Google Classroom. So if you have the time or at least if this interests you, so you can always watch those recordings. Okay. Oops. Next, we have this perpetual inventory system. So a perpetual inventory system continuously tracks inventory levels in real time using technology. So it could be barcode scanning, point of sale system, and inventory software. Now, so meaning class, when we say perpetual inventory system, every time we purchase, we count it. So how it works, every sale, purchase, or movement is recorded right away. Okay, so we don't need to wait till end of year to count our inventory. So every time we make purchases, we add it to our inventory. Every time we make sales, we deduct it from our inventory. So inventory records are always up to date. Okay, it is best for retail stores, warehouses with high transaction volume, and e-commerce businesses. No? So like the likes of Lazada and Shopee actually provide these platforms to their platform users. No? So advantages of this are number one, accurate real-time inventory data. You would know at a given time how much is left in your inventory. Faster detection of shrinkage or discrepancies. No? So you would know when your inventory balance doesn't reconcile with your expected count, no? Because again, you're counting it right away, no? Every after purchase, every after sales. It also is um, better for forecasting and reordering because it's real time, you would know the level of your inventory uh, at any given time, no? And then from there, you can forecast when to purchase. Uh, you would know how much to purchase. Okay, so that's perpetual inventory system. Again, it's good to know, no, for you as marketing managers in the future, what's this perpetual inventory system? But like I said, another profession, no? So we have accountants doing this for you. Okay. International marketing. So marketing products across national borders, it requires understanding the culture, legal and economic differences. Strategies include global standardization versus localization. No? So it follows different standards. No? So for example, when we think about global standardization, no? So it always incorporates a lot of you know a consideration in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of localization. No? It also entails uh, a lot of different policies within the locality. Not that you have to be really very keen of, and you have to really follow them. It also involves international pricing, promotion, and distribution decisions. So, for example, you would like to penetrate a Muslim country or a Muslim organization, obviously you have to make sure that your product is halal. Okay, it helps companies expand market reach and competitiveness.